And did you have in mind, while you were acting him all along, this transformation that we'll see at the end, or were you also playing on that, I don't know, the play on people not knowing how this character is going to react?
Well, I guess I see the character as having two transformations. One, the first is, I think that he actually begins the film being, at least within the context of a fairly restrictive and prescriptive community, being a fairly open-minded person and someone with a big heart who has just deep affection and love for his wife, and also feels passion for her. I don't think that he's somebody who is confined to the life of the mind, or whose religion has hampered his ability to feel physical desire and longing for his wife. On the contrary, I mean, he's teaching a very passionate psalm to his students early in the movie, which gives you information that the idea of there being some kind of profound physical connection with his wife is something that has become an obsession of his, and that he wants for them in the tenderest and purest kind of way, and that he's not getting. And that it's the fact of this threat coming directly into his personal life and into his family that threatens to destroy his marriage and his household, that forces him to become more conservative and more rigid in his adherence to the religious law than maybe he naturally was. And so that, to me, was almost more interesting than his ultimate acceptance of her, which is an act of profound love and generosity, and of course is the sort of what makes the end of the movie beautiful for all three of them. But the most unusual thing to me was this idea of no, he wasn't sort of Sebastian didn't want to present a character who was at the beginning of the movie already a kind of religious zealot who was determined to deny himself and his wife any kind of sexual life or life of passion. And on the contrary, he wanted all those things. And then as Rachel Weisz's character comes into the story and into his life, he's forced to resist it, and it's that resistance that creates this kind of rigid, demanding adherence to religious law.
He liberates himself too.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. But also destroys himself by the end. I mean, I really feel that, one of the tragedies of the movie and one of the sort of wonderful ambiguities of the movie is that by the end of the movie, I mean, I don't know what David's future is. I mean, he's really left with nothing. I mean, both of these women go to different lives. Rachel's been living in New York, and she goes back to her life. Esty is going to start something completely new and exciting for her, really, because it's a liberation of some kind. But he is going to be left in that community because he still, feels that that's where he belongs, and yet, how what his role and what his place there is going to be in the future is very hard to conceive of after what's happened. So it's, we don't know.
I think everyone's going to interpret it differently, but for me, in the moment where he says, he gives his wife her freedom and says, I don't have sufficient knowledge to become the next rabbi. I'm not, what does he say? I don't have enough understanding. That to me, in that moment, he becomes the most spiritually evolved character almost that I've ever seen portrayed in fiction. And in that moment, he would be the best rabbi possible. I mean, that's the rabbi I would want. You know, that
I agree, but I
reaches
wonder whether
spiritual
whether that
Sure.
rabbi
It might
could
be hard for him
exist
to-
in that particular community.
He's going to have to start his own
Yeah.
synagogue down
He
the
may-
road, a bit more liberal.
Maybe a new Reformed Jewish synagogue happening 2
There's a
blocks
place for him
away.
in this world. I think he'll be okay.
No, absolutely. I mean, there are, obviously so many Jewish people that practice their religion in many, many different ways. And of course, there's a place for David's brand of Judaism to exist and flourish and thrive. But this is the community that he grew up in, that, he's become a leader in this and spent his whole life,
He's evolved beyond them now, in my interpretation.
Yeah, I agree, but she has exploded the whole thing with it in mind to leave, and he hasn't necessarily, and so that's maybe harder for him. I don't know.
Well, I was going to say maybe another read on that is that this is just the start of his days in the desert as well. I mean, there's an element of that to that line as well. I think we have a question here.
Hi, good morning, everyone, and cheers to the beautiful weather. There's a special bond between your two characters in the movie, so I was wondering if you have anyone in your past that you have a special bond still, and then have you learned anything about each of, Rachel from Rachel and the other way around? Did you haven't or didn't know it before? Like that you will remember, yeah, that's Rachel. Thanks.
There are lots of people that you have a special bond with in the past. I don't totally understand that part of the question.
Like somebody that, I don't know, maybe that you don't meet every day, but you were always excited to go back and meet. Like there are people in our lives that, we don't see for the longest time ever, and then you get to meet again, and it's like, oh yes, right. I don't know what I'm trying to.
I feel like that, I mean, for better or for worse, doesn't that happen with everyone you've ever loved? You see them and you're like, oh my God, I hate you, but I love you. It's so weird. And it's been 20 years. I feel like those just don't go away. They've got real staying power. So I don't know. I mean, I don't have many, but there's, those are.
Have you learned anything about each other while doing this movie? Because you work really close together.
Yeah, we had a lot of time to talk about other things. You can if you want. This is her favorite topic now.
I don't know why I was so struck by it. But no, when Rachel was 9, she was a very, very talented figure skater.
This is how it's evolved in her mind.
In my mind. But there was a coach that wanted to keep training you, and you'd have to train after school and weekends. It would have been a fast track. The coach hoped that you would be fast tracked to some
Olympic gold.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and so there was a moment, I think, what you, yourself as a 9-year-old, saw this this fork in the road and thought, take a right to the ice skating coach life and have no free time and no childhood. I mean, you didn't put it exactly like this, or just not do that. And you chose, but she could have been Rachel in my mind.
What I could have
She
been.
is I have the alternate reality of a champion figure skate, Olympic winner, champion figure skater. So she's always going to be my gorgeous figure skater. I just see her in spandex and the little costume and the sequin. I love sequins, so it's totally. I really have a thing for sequins.
I think we went on the wrong paths. Next life. Well, in Rachel, sort of.
Mine's boring. There's
No,
no spandex.
it's not. Ran an avant-garde theater company, and she's going to start it again. You're going back to it, yes? Well,
that's
we're
what I
not
said,
claiming that now.
Exclusive.
I know. There you go. I'm throwing you under the bus now. You have to do it.
I think we have another question over here.
Okay, I'm processing the sliding doors, skating
There you go.
version.
That's what I was.
Rachel McAdams.
2 Rachels, right?
That's right, yeah.
Yeah.
The setting of the film really kind of helps set the tone of the story, and I'm wondering if you can talk about the specificity of North London, and maybe Rachel Weisz, since you are a Brit.
North Londoner.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Yeah, well, I grew up a couple of tube stops. In fact, when Rachel and I were on the tube going to the hotel, we went from Edgware, where I used to go to school, past Golders Green, where I grew up, through to Leicester Square. So the Northern Line, it was like it was my hood, you know. And I've talked to